everybody. Welcome to acimge 2017. I'm acimge2015, Head of Press. Just like the past 2 years, we are glad to be with you in this conference. Starting from today, the next 2 days, we will be all over social media. Snapchat, photo, Instagram. We also have Periscope as well, so you can tell all your family and friends who are not here to watch and enjoy the conference as well. Also, we have our main website. You can reach it from acimge's main website. And you can see the usernames here. You can all follow us from those accounts. And you can reach our website through acimge's journalist section over there, as you can see. As you know, this conference is a microcosm of the real world. But we hope that both the press and the model government will enjoy more meaningful partnerships and peaceful talks than the world. Hope you enjoy the conference and the press. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yasemin, for your speech. Now, to make the opening speech, I would like to welcome our Deputy Secretary General, Selin Imam. Selin,
Honorable chairs, esteemed delegates, and distinguished guests. It is an honor to be this year's Deputy Secretary General along with Serra Beyazıt at this year's acimge Model Government Europe. As you all may know, the Model Government Europe format focuses on finding solutions to crises. Every year, as acimge, we try to find unique crises that involves every ministry and country. This year's main focus is on the plague that spreads across Europe. Our crisis team worked on the crisis throughout the year to make it perfect. We were curious upon how such a disease could spread with our modern-day technology and the solutions that the ministries would find. As the executive team, we all worked hard to finalize this conference. I would like to thank Ediz Aviante and Seydin Erçek for their efforts as a recruitment team and Zeynep Ergüder as our public relations manager. Also our finance team, Mark Tuncay, Dilara Aykın, Zeynep Erçel, along with our crisis team, Maurice Tarik, Cem Benjia, and Cem Köprügü. I would also like to thank our advisors, Tunca Bozkurt and Seydin Kartal. Lastly, I would like to thank Alara Kolat for her commitment to our conference. Without her, we wouldn't be able to have this conference. She had multiple near breakdowns due to stress from the conference, and I can't imagine anyone else more suitable for this position. And I am not exaggerating or embellishing in any way when I say this conference wouldn't be possible without her. I would like to yield the floor to Dilara Aykın to introduce our Secretary General.
now to deliver her opening speech, I would like to welcome our Secretary General, Alara Kolat.
Welcome everyone, delegates, press members, chair members, and admins, and our keynote speaker, everyone, thank you for coming. It's really exciting to see new faces alongside with old ones, because it shows how widespread acimge is becoming. Like Selin said, our crisis will focus on the deadly plague, and I hope your ministers can collaborate and find new ideas, write innovative directives, and shape the crisis accordingly, because acimge is a very innovative conference that you guys will shape. Every year, acimge aims to inspire, innovate, and collaborate, and this year is no different. Even though you will only experience 3 days of acimge, there's a year's worth of hard work and practice behind it. They always say that your team carries you to success, so that's true. And I learned how true that is. With that said, I'd like to introduce the Executive Board of 2017. Selin already mentioned their names, but I would like to introduce them. The content is what you ministers work on during the conference, and that is brought to you by our crisis team, Cem Benjia, Cem Köprügü, and Maurice Tarik. And thanks to Serra Beyazıt, our Deputy Secretary General of Content, we have a very unique set of student officers this year. And on the other side, organization plays a big role as well. Many of you might know our recruitment team, Seydin Erçek, and Eliza Viente. And in addition, we have our public relations manager, Zeynep Ergüder, who always keeps you posted on Instagram and brings fun activities. Then we have our finance team, Mert Tuncay, Dilara Akın, and Lalin Ersu, who literally made the conference. And finally, I would like to thank Selin İmam, our Deputy Secretary General of Organization, for always being a helping hand at anything. And a final shout out to Selin Kartal and Tunca Bozkurt for always helping us through any problems that we encountered, our MEN advisors. And I wish everyone a fruitful conference, and I would like to yield the floor to Dilara to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Atar.
This time, like Alara said, I would like to introduce you to our keynote speaker, Dr. Ata Akın. Dr. Ata Akın has a doctoral degree in biomedical engineering, and he is conducting research on neuroimagining and system biology in the Brain and Mind Laboratory. He measures the physiological changes of the brain in decision-making and their effects of the disease by optical tomography. Through systematic research on biology and mathematical modeling of human biology and biochemistry, he developed approaches to better understand neurobiology, metabolic diseases, cancer biology, and athletic physiology. Dr. Akın focused on the relationship between the neurobiological process and the behavioral processes that extend through our genes. With this, Dr. Akın, you have the floor.
Fontlar var bir sürü de. Okay, let's see if it will work. I am at all. This is amazing. This is the first time I've been invited to a talk like this, and I'm very excited. I never get excited at talks. This is like the 100th or maybe 200th time that I'm doing something like this. But believe me, when you guys start to talk about what you want to do, it was really very exciting for me. And I hope I don't screw up, you know. To start with, I am an engineer, all right? I'm a poor engineer, so have mercy on me. I'm not a politician. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a biologist. So all the things that I will talk about here is about the engineering perspective on how we can help solve problems in medicine and healthcare. So I hope, dear delegates, that my talk is going to inspire some new solutions, and that science will eventually help alleviate several of the problems that you will face. You guys have difficulty in seeing what I will show. But so, several years ago, a group in United States and the rest of the world decided to list the grand challenges of engineering that awaits us for the next, I don't know, 20 years. Out of all those 15, I think 14 grand challenges, I picked those 4 that I feel relevant to this talk. Now, we are all interested in how we came about, you know, and our position and our purpose in life. So the only way to understand that, we claim, is to be able to understand the brain. Because this is, through the brain, we understand the environment, we perceive things, and we respond to different threats and other things. So by understanding how the brain works, we can pretty much understand our purpose in life. So that was one of the first things, challenges that they came up with. engineering better medicines have always been a problem. You know, you guys have been sick many times and that you have taken a lot of medication, but you know that some medications work on you while the others wouldn't work on you. So it seems that there is a difference between our bodies, like biochemistry and all, which lead to the problem that one medication would work for you while the other medication will not. So we need to come up with better medicines with less side effects and immediate responses and cheaper ones so that we can increase the health quality of humanity. This is very interesting, health informatics. I'll talk about this very briefly, but what this is that, as you know, information became a very important part of health nowadays. You go to a doctor, they administer many tests, they take you through MRI scans, the physicians examine you, but all this eventually are put inside a computer, so we have lots of data floating around. Now, when you think about what's going on the rest of the world, we see a lot of data coming up in every part of the world, and all these, if they could be integrated, would probably lead to a better decision making in terms of solving problems or coming up with better solutions. So health informatics seems to be one of the areas where you consolidate big data into understandable and usable information. Was about clean water. I know it's not what you're doing now, but it seems that as we increase in population, there is a limit to what the world can offer to us, especially in terms of resources. And the very first resource is water and, of course, air. So it seems that finding clean water will be an important priority in the future. So these are called grand challenges, and you can find it on engineeringchallenges.org. So
it's 16:30.
I didn't do that. Okay, so I'll give you a background on what we know and what we can know about life. Now, this is hacking the code of life. We know that organisms have certain dimensions, and I put the dimensions over here in log scale. This is 10 to minus 1, which is decimeter scale. 10 to minus 3 is millimeter scale, and 10 to minus 9 is nanometer scale. Now, we have a lot of data, real data, embedded in this one. As you can see, nanometer scale is so small that it is the scale of the DNA. And the DNA actually contains a lot of information. It not only contains what you are now, but it contains what you were a million years ago. Okay, so through evolution, we have acquired this information. Do we know what it does? No. But there is a lot of information over there. So the real data that is buried inside the DNA is very high. While when you go to decimeter scale, like my heart, for example, 10 centimeters, it only does one thing. The information that it provides is only pumping blood. So this is the amount of available data on a log scale, while when we start measuring, when we design instruments to measure this data, we have the reverse approach. What we can do with our instruments is that we can pretty much gather a lot of information on large scale, but when we go to the small scale, we have no idea what is going on. In fact, scientists have separated these into areas, categorized this. As you can see, this is clinical informatics, and anything below here, smaller than the DNA structure, we have no idea what it is. There is a universe over there, but we don't understand what it is. What is going on in our lives as we become sick is that something happens in the very small scale, which is transferred to the surface. So it becomes observable. That is called the phenotype, which means you can measure it. The issue is we see this all the time. When you go to a doctor, the physician actually sees this. But there is very little understanding of what has gone bad in the inside. So since we don't have instruments to measure in that small scale, we cannot understand what was going on over here. So the challenge is to be able to understand and even detect at very early stages what is going on in those small structures, because eventually they build up to cause large problems like Alzheimer's disease. There has been an evolution or revolution in a biomedical area, and I'd like to talk about that. In 1970s, it was very difficult to collect data, so data was important. But now, through millimeter, we can go to nanometer scale. We have instruments now that can decipher your genetic code in nanometer scale. So we know where your gene is going wrong. So that's now a revolution. Second one is about data analysis. Now we have powerful instruments, computers that can analyze a lot of data. Not only that, we can build mathematical models to predict how your behavior or how your disease is going to progress. So now, using data and analysis methods and together with math, we can predict pretty much the future. And in fact, you guys have known this. You go to a doctor and they say, well, if you don't take this medication, you'll be sick or worse. But if you take this medication, you should be free of this illness in 3 days. How do they know this? Of course, experience. But now we have instruments and technologies that could predict whether you should take this amount or that amount of medication. And last, since the data became bigger and bigger, we started to include health patient data into the system. This leads to a broader understanding of healthcare, where it is going, where the problems are. If there's an epidemic in one part of the world, is it going to spread to the rest of the world? What type of medications we can come up with or protocols we can use to limit the spread of these types of issues. So healthcare information system is a big data which includes your health records along with others so that you can combine that data to come up with better solutions. Now I'd like to talk about a main dogma. This is where I try to explain how science can help minimize the problems we see in healthcare. You see, when you go to a doctor, you have a disease, which neither you nor the doctor knows, okay? So I name those this one. What the doctor sees are your symptoms, you know? They touch you, they do a physical exam on you, you know? Press here, press that, look at your throat, whatever, and then they administer several tests, you know? Blood tests, urine tests, throat culture tests, many other things. So they look at the symptoms. After that, they come up with a decision, which we call diagnosis, and then they come up, they give you the therapy. Now we know that diseases come in variety of symptoms. Each disease has several symptoms. The problem is that several diseases share the same type of symptom. You guys have all felt this. You know, if you have a pain in the gut, you know, oh, it hurts, right? It could be many things. If you have fever, you know, fever could be the result of many other diseases. So the doctor's job is to be able to look at all these symptoms and decide whether you have this disease or that disease. And so what he does is that he tries to figure out whether you have this symptom or not. The presence of this symptom is very important. Now, whatever I'm telling over here, I believe, dear delegates, I believe that it could be also used for analyzing social events, political events and social events. A country might have a problem, several problems, and they have symptoms, okay? To be able to minimize or cure the symptoms, you have to come up with a therapy. Now the issue is, if you have ignored a very important symptom, then you have come up with a wrong diagnosis, which would lead to a wrong therapy, which is not going to work. In that case, the doctor says, well, come back in 10 days, because if he has missed this, or if he hasn't come up with the right decision, or if the therapy is not right, then the issue is that by this checkup, he will be able to figure out whether he has made a mistake or not. So this is not to show that the physicians don't know what they're doing. This is to show that there's a problem over here. The problem is that it is very difficult to understand whether you have this disease or that disease, because you might be missing on this symptom, or your therapy might not be actually working. So the medication that you have designed might not be suitable for this disease. So the solution, what is the solution? Well, the solution is to improve the diagnosis accuracy by technology, or come up with new technologies to improve the therapeutic outcome so that the treatment actually works. The way to do that is combining science, communication, and innovation. You know, it is very difficult to come up with a solution by myself because I'm only an engineer. I have to work with many other disciplines. And this is called a transdisciplinary approach, and I believe this is what you're going to do over here. This is a brand new word. It's more than interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary. It says that you have to combine the culture of many different approaches, and you have to teach those approaches and make sure that when you start talking, everyone has the same opportunity. So the transdisciplinary approach includes, especially for our cases, science, basic science, communication, and medicine. So the solution has been termed as biodesign, and I hope that several of you would be interested in coming up with a vaccine that would minimize this spread of this virus epidemic, and it includes understanding of the medication and education and research and development, as you would know. Now I'll give some examples on this. So to be able to do that, we have to understand the environment, the clinical setting. The clinical setting hasn't changed much, in fact, over the last 100 or 200 years. There's still digging and bone crafting and many other things, surgery. There's still standing in front of the patient and talking and talking. So the clinical practice hasn't changed much, but the tools that they have used have improved greatly. So it's through these tools that the medical experts provide better healthcare. I'd like to talk to you about what type of medical technologies exist so that maybe you could use it in your discussions as a means of helping solve these problems. There are basically several classifications of biomedical systems. When you go to a physician, those are the instruments that I'm talking about. So there are ones that we call diagnosis. It's either in vivo or in vitro. In vivo is you don't take a piece out, you don't take blood, you don't draw blood, but whatever the patient is, you bring an instrument over to the patient and you measure on the patient. In vitro is when you take outside the body, like taking a blood sample, taking a tissue sample. We have therapeutic systems, we have targeted systems that are directly related to one disease, or broad use systems like magnetic resonance, MRI, or ultrasound, which you can use to monitor the baby or to look at breast cancer. You can develop software for diagnosis and therapy. So it's a clever way of detecting cancer, for example. Or you can design software for managerial purposes. And there are also consumables in biomedical systems. So those are the areas that medical engineers usually work on. So what is the future of medical technologies? I'd like to also give you some insight about this, so maybe it might be helpful. Well, regenerative medicine seems to be the leading edge now, including biomaterials and tissue engineering, because the population is getting older and older, and their organs are failing. So we need to replace the damaged or missing organs, like the teeth. We can do stem cell therapy. We can use biomechanics to help them work better. So these are all the technologies that we believe will be included in the future of medical technologies. The medical devices have become smaller and smaller, and in fact now we have implantable technologies that replace organs, like the left ventricular assisted device, which is a piece of the heart, like the left part of the heart, which is not working, but you bypass it with a pump. So we have pumps. I'm sorry you can't see over here, but there is a hand over. Thank you guys. There's a hand over here. Prosthesis. It's a robotic arm. for people who have lost their arms and stuff like that, which can be controlled through the brain interfaces. Again, making things smaller and smaller and fit them into the cell phones will be the future as well, because these are very powerful tools. And last, clinical decision support systems have become important, as I said, because before the data have become a lot, and when you start collecting the data to turn it into use, like when you visit a physician, the physician might think that you have a disease and look at the symptoms. But I said that there are overlapping symptoms. What if there were a program that would alert the physician saying, well, when you are coming up with this decision, did you also double check whether there's those symptoms or not? Just a reminder, you know? You don't want to guide the physician, for God's sake, you know, that's very dangerous. You don't want to do that to a physician. They get mad at you. So expert systems have been offered, and the reason for that is for preventive medicine. Is it possible to be able to detect something before it even happens so that you can prevent cancer? This is early detection, and preventive medicine has become important. The only way that would be possible is, again, through engineering and science, because you have to make these things cheap and widespread. Now, when we come to infectious diseases like your problem, well, for the last 10 years, United States have been at alert, red alert, after the 9/11 attack, and because of this warfare and stuff like that. So they came up with this idea that there are all these weird people in Middle East working on new viruses that would be used as a threat. So they called it the emerging infectious diseases, and as you can see, it's those whose incidence has increased in the past 20 years. Now, this has become a new area. You know, you can actually design a virus like you're designing a software. It is possible to do that now. If you look at the genetic code of the virus, and if you know which part you would like to attack, like a group in a country, even a specific group in a country that has a certain genetic trait, you can design your virus to affect those people and only those people. So this has become a very dangerous game now, and to be able to minimize its effects and to be able to counter its effects, Boston University has decided to collaborate with many other universities and the NIH to come up with a National Emerging Infectious Diseases Lab. This is like a 10-story, I believe, building where they have virus experts and virus labs and everything, and countermeasures for these. So it's a state-of-art technology. They're not only designing viruses, but they're also trying to design vaccines to overcome the effect of viruses. So they have the threat and the cure at the same time. Just to give you some more idea about how mathematics and science can help understand the spread of events. Now,